It is the Blue Room. It is Blue Monday. We are back to brighten up, hopefully, what is a very dreary day if you're listening in Liverpool or the UK. Or hopefully improve your day if you're listening elsewhere in the world in happier, sunnier climates. Joining me, the ray of sunshine himself, Dave Downey. How are you?
Do you know what? I'm all right. And I think it's quite ironic, really, because I said last week and you changed it back. It was Monday Blues, as in, like, it's quite a depressing day for anyone to go back to work. Probably started the theme, like you said, it's miserable around here outside and everything that went on last week, given what happened with the Blues itself. It's probably the fitting name of the show this week, isn't it? But we'll try and cheer everyone up, won't we?
I mean, it's quite literally the saying, it never rains, but it pours. The weather's been horrific, hasn't it? But yeah, we're not here to talk about climates and that kind of stuff. We're here to talk about Everton. We're going to try and sort of look ahead a little bit to what comes next and how we think this might impact the team. We're going to break away from the usual format, obviously, this week as well in regards to an Everton player of the weekend. We spoke about it. Not really many international performances. Everton women had a pretty difficult day again yesterday, being 2 goals up and then eventually drawing 2-2. So not a ton of standout candidates. We'll do a couple of football moments the weekend in general to finish off. But looking ahead, Dave, obviously we've gone over the rule and we've gone over the reasons why. We've gone over what we think of it, whether it's ridiculous. We've gone over whether you should be angry about it or not. But looking ahead now, obviously a lot of the players will start to return to training properly this week. There'll be some that come back to international duty in sort of drips and drabs. What do you think that's going to be like for everybody from an Everton perspective? It's because I imagine their WhatsApp groups would have been buzzing over the weekend and stuff like that. But when they all get back together, all in person, it's going to be quite strange for them all, I imagine.
Yeah, I think when you're all greeting each other when you drive your car into Finch Farm and everyone's getting in the changing room, there's only one subject for them all, really. Like, oh, what about that? Even if they've been, hammering the messages ever since the announcement came along. And then I can envision it myself when Sean Dyche probably walks into the room after he's done a bit of admin or whatever since he's been in, walks in, everyone sits there quiet like it's your first hour in school, when the teacher's giving the list out and stuff like that and asking people what they did at the weekend. I think you've got Sean Dyche coming in, Ian Wone, Steve Stone, whatever, standing around them and basically saying nothing changes type of thing. Because we were on a decent run of form. Everybody's buzzing for when we play Man United at home. I think when we got that win at Crystal Palace, everyone was turning to the fixture list, seeing what we were going to be doing and coming up to Christmas when they have the relentless amount of games coming up. And having said that, it's going to be particularly difficult to get people away from, because it's only natural human beings, isn't it? Whether you play for Everton or not, you are going to see that news 24/7, even if you turn your radio on on your social media. That's what players do and what players have. They're still going to see all this. So I think there's a mental side of things here that I think we've got the best manager for to be able to try and sort this out. I know it's often referred, isn't it, when we're playing poorly, the dogs of war terminology. I don't buy that sort of side of things, that it needs to be like that. I actually don't think, and think, listen, obviously people are going to have taken their thoughts and opinions and, it's gone off their heads. People, have hit the roof when we found out this judgment. I think that, I don't want to say it's been exaggerated, but I think in Finch Farm, I think that Sean Dyche will be trying to put that forward to them. Like, nothing changes here, lads. Look, we were on a good run. We were 8 points above the relegation zone. We had a run of fixtures coming up where we really fancied things. The other thing you can say towards them in a positive way is Goodison's going to be going crazy when we get in there. The atmosphere is going to be absolutely insane from what we've seen before. And yeah, I think there's a different style of things going on for the players when they get in, and I'd like to think that the players themselves are seeing this as something that they really need to fight themselves. We've been talking about how they how they react to this in terms of does everybody think, oh no, another relegation fight and whatnot. But then, Sean Dyche, he has to throw up the league table and say, well, do you know what, we'll be out of the bottom three when we beat Man United on Sunday.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? I think that's the thing we're all kind of clinging on to. You look at the fixtures that are coming up this weekend. Sheffield United play Bournemouth at home, so there's two of our
Yeah,
relegation
yeah.
rivals. Yeah, going up against each other. Burnley have got West Ham at home, and Luton have got Palace at home, and of course we've got United on Sunday. So we all know already, and it's mad even talking like this because it's match day 13 of 38. We're not in April yet where we need to start checking other teams' results, but it feels like that's going to happen maybe a bit quicker this time, given the situations we're in. And I don't know about you, it's just like this weekend, it does kind of feel important because it feels like if we can just get out of the relegation zone this weekend, and listen, that might not be doable if Bournemouth go and beat. Well, it won't be doable if Bournemouth go and beat Sheffield United and Luton go and win their matches, of course. But if we can get that win at the weekend and push ourselves clear of Burnley again, you can move above one of Sheffield United. You can get closer to Bournemouth. Then I think all of a sudden we can start to continue to ride that momentum of being indignant and angry and channeling all this fury we've got of what we've got as a perceived incorrect decision, a perceived harsh decision even against us. But I'm just wondering like how is that something that can continue to survive? Say if Luton win this weekend against Crystal Palace at home, which listen, they could do. If Sheffield United went and won this weekend, and say United came and did a job on us, as they have done a few times at Goodison in recent years. Do you feel like this momentum we've got now? It's maybe momentum's the wrong word, but this emotion we've got to harness right now. Do you see that being something that's going to persist throughout the season, regardless of the ups and downs, or do you think it's going to be quite a fragile thing that we need to make sure we kind of handle with care?
Yes, I think that's an excellent question, and one that you can look at quite closely both ways. I'd like to think that this is the exact type of scenario why Sean Dyche was brought in after Frank Lampard. When he came in, there was that seize mentality quite early, wasn't it? You think about the Arsenal game, his first match. That was the way I imagine Goodison's going to be this weekend. And you do look at that league table quite often, and to play devil's advocate, it's not like it's new to us that we're sitting in the bottom three, heading towards mid-season, is it? Let's face it, the last 2.5 years, we've been in this exact same position. If you look back and see after 12 games in the last couple of seasons, we've been in and about the bottom three. This is only so staggering for us, given the size of that that news that came out last week. It's such a difficult thing to talk about, Matt, because even if we win the game, everyone will be looking at that league table thinking, oh wow, we'd be on 17 points right now. We could be in ninth where West Ham are. That was what we'll do as fans, because every single time this happens, we'll be like, oh, we could be here, we could be there. That run of form that we've been on, it's going to be difficult for all of us to get that out of our minds. So I think fan wise, it'll be difficult to get that out of your mind, and also with the appeal, again, that's something that I hope ends really quickly. I think we hinted on this last week.
It has to, doesn't it? Like that.
Yeah.
Reading more about that over the weekend because of the nature of the competition and how it effectively needs to be sorted this season. If we go down and then the points deductions halve, like what happens then? Does it get like added on in the championship or what? Like it's got to be done this weekend. Not this weekend. I mean, it'd be nice if it was done this weekend. It's got to be done. It's got to be done this season, hasn't it?
Oh, this season, I'd say a matter of ideal if it's a matter of weeks, and because we need to know where we stand here. If ideal it'd be if the Premier League rang up and said there's pointless in appealing, lads, because we're just going to stick where it is. I imagine, if you were to look into the future, that's probably what's going to happen. You don't see these things change. This has been dictated for the reason that it's going to stay that way. That needs to be the mentality of it. But it's interesting you make that point, because I was saying, can you imagine if you're sitting there and you're Burnley, or you're sitting there and you're Leicester? It's only because of time that those two sides haven't stayed up. And I'm having a lot of discussions and debates with people about this, because this has only happened, a year later than Leicester went down. Had the 10 points been deducted then, they'd still be in the Premier League. Now, obviously, they're still trying to do this financial against us, but it's a matter of time where those sides haven't stayed up. I'd be furious if this has happened and I'm a Leicester or Burnley fan. And
But they couldn't have all stayed up, Dave, could they? That's the thing. Like, only
no,
one
because
of them
I'm talking about seasons.
Yeah.
Last season, Leicester could have stayed up with the 10 points, and the previous season to that, when Burnley went down, they could have stayed up. And people are saying to me, well, you can't moan about that if you're one of their fans, because we hadn't done it yet. But when you think about this issue, how many years has it been going when we've been getting investigated and spoken to and applying and trying to work in a positive way with the Premier League? It's several years, isn't it? So if you see that come along, I'd be concerned. I'd be fuming if I was one of those clubs. But nonetheless, it comes to this time where we're at. It's been hard to take, because we've had a lot of chats in the last one as well, which went on for about an hour. And we had Flusk and Rob come on when we were talking about why we've got to this issue. And we looked at the other side of it as to why we've got to the stage in which it happened. That's the thing that's hardest to take, because we've suffered so much as fans for quite some time. Pretty much how long was it a bit of a honeymoon when Mashiri come in? He's been here 7 years now. What was the time when you thought this changed a little bit? Maybe a couple of years later, maybe when Allardyce had to come in. Around that time, we've been a suffering football club. So to play devil's advocate again with this, if you see this as like cutting, I hate the term, but a new slate's coming along, because all of this has been, we've been done the deduction, that if that goes, cut a clean slate, and then you just look at the league table, you're 2 points away from staying up in the Premier League. You then have to think, well, that's not the end of the world. If you'd have told us at the start of the season that this was the case, all we'd be doing is sitting here saying, do we have to get rid of Sean Dyche? Do you know what I mean? So it's a more positive feeling than that. So mentality-wise, you just got to get rid, as hard as it is, and look at that league and try and fight your way out of it as soon as you can. And that could just happen on Sunday. So it's quite strange for me to say, Matt, as you always have done, taking the mick out of me. But I'm looking at this in as the most positive way as I possibly can.
Oh, I was being very sincere, Dave, when I described it as a ray of sunshine. You're right. Just you said something there. I was just like, there's a lot of like hypotheticals and like putting yourselves in situations that are sort of done around this last few days.
Yeah.
But say if this had come down at the start of the season and we'd started on -10 before we know anything about Burnley or Sheffield United or Luton. Like, imagine the day. Like, I feel like then there would have been anger for sure, but I mean, maybe there would have been it would have been tinged with like a sense of resignation as well. Because
I think we were down already. I think we'd
because let's not forget, like the last few seasons, we've stayed up by our fingernails, really, haven't we? And if we were to have been hit with a 10-point deduction in any of those seasons at any point, I don't think the team necessarily would have responded and rallied, and I don't think it would have changed too much in our results. If it felt like, it feels like we would have absolutely gone down. And I kind of this summer, like maybe it would have been different if we'd been hit with it the first season after the Palace 3-2 season. Like, if we got it that summer, then maybe there might have been a bit more right. That last season was a one-off. We absolutely fucked it, but things are going to be better now, and we can overcome this, etc., etc. Obviously, that wasn't the case, but the feeling at the time might have been different. But imagine going into this summer and know we're going to start -10 and seeing all the way in which Burnley were being built up as this great new side for the Premier League. All the stuff around Luton as well, and you would have been completely resigned. But and we have that in mind. Like, it's obviously not come too late either. And listen, I'm not sitting here welcoming this by any means, but it kind of feels like if we were gonna get this, now is a good time for it. Like, it's a good time to have a big problem, because not only is the team playing well and has shown that they can put distance between teams at the bottom, there is enough time still left in the season. We have got what I think is an ideal game coming up to harness the anger and the indignation in United. It's on Sky. It's a big team that aren't necessarily playing at the top of their game at the moment. They've got loads of injuries. So it feels like a nice one for us to kind of get started. You know, this, I suppose what I'm saying in a long roundabout way is that this could have been miles worse. And I think I'm hoping we sort of hit this on Friday that this is something that looking ahead we can use as a bit of a kickstart and can give everybody a boost to mobilise. You know, you see the GoFundMe that's been set up for the banners. You know, last to check over the weekend, I think it was on £30,000, was it, or something like that?
Unbelievable.
Which is absolutely incredible. You know, be able to pay that £19 million sure fall off in no time if we keep going along like that. But it feels like there's huge purpose now around all this, and obviously you've got the added factor in as well that it's Goodison's last full season potentially too. So yeah, I feel as though I'm not feeling bad about it, and I feel like if this had come a few months later, if this had come a few months earlier, then I would have been a lot more down in the dumps and a lot more resigned and thinking, oh no, this is where it does all come to an end. You know, we scrapped so hard to keep our Premier League status the last 2 seasons, and now here we are, potentially relegated before the season really started, feeling like we're resigned and down. But instead, I'm feeling relatively upbeat about it all, if that makes sense. I appreciate I've rambled a lot there to say something that's very simple, but it's just kind of how it's settling with me at the moment.
No, I completely agree. We had some fella on Twitter kicking off because we possibly said something could come positively from when this has actually happened. But if you ask anybody individually,
just to clarify I mean, this is bad. Like Everton Everton have admitted they've done wrong here, and it is a huge indictment of the absolutely horrific way in which we've been run as a football club for so long. And anyone who's been involved in that, has got massive questions to answer, because we're ultimately going to come out of this. I think, regardless of the appeal, they could put the best appeal forward in the world.
Yeah,
still going to get a points deduction, and the fact that Everton have been deducted points for financial mismanagement, whatever you want to call it, is horrific. And there's got to be questions to answer on that, and there's got to be accountability. But in the interest of throwing it forward, like we said we were going to do on this podcast, that's kind of where I'm trying to channel it into a positive way.
Yeah, and there's several ways to look at that. I think we've looked at a couple of them right now too. But the other perspective that I've been looking at as well is, I think there's a group who are going to go down to appeal at the Premier League HQ. I don't know how good that's going to do, but fair play to people who want to do that. People who are committed to.
I'm all for that.
Exactly.
Any kind of pettiness we can muster up at the moment.
Oh, mate, like you said, the amount of money that's gone in for the flags and all that stuff, it's tremendous. That has, sadly, we've had to do that a lot over recent years, haven't we? That sort of thing to get each other together, and that sees mentality as well. But with you saying that, I mean, there are multiple ways of looking at this, and it's been really interesting. I think probably mentally for a lot of people, the immediate hatred, I think there's more so goes towards the deduction than it goes towards the club. Bear in mind, you can have a go at both, really, can't you? But we had that debate last week, whether you would, who would you blame? Would you blame Everton as much as the Premier League, or is the Premier League the one to blame? Now, it seems to be the Premier League, ironically, is the one to blame more than what's happened at Everton. And it seems to be only the amount of 10 points there that has been in the front and centre of many people's minds. You take that away from it, and look, the saying is time heals all, isn't it? We've got to a stage now, like I think you're spot on about, when it's literally when this has happened that has gone in our favour. All I've heard since it's happened as well is, I was so lucky that it's Luton, Sheffield United and Burnley to come up. If it was anyone who were better, then Everton would probably be down by now or really battling to the end of the season. It's hard to buy that when that sort of thing. We've seen it plenty in the past where a side will stay up that has come up and you think, oh, they're crap, they're going to go down early. The thing we've spoken about again, ironically, quite a lot, is that pre-season, when we're saying we're still going to be in a relegation fight, the amount of people have said, "Oh, we're really lucky given the three sides that have come up. How many points are they going to finish with at the end of the season?" And to be fair, I come out myself and said they'll do well to get to 30. Will it take Everton a lot to get to 30 points right now? Doubt it. Plus, the other thing, if Everton start this season like this, the only thing, just given the context we're in, there'd be kick off with, "Oh, we've not signed enough players." There'd be the usual narrative that go along with Everton. Like how many times we've done it when we've lost one game, people are saying you've got to get rid of whoever the manager is. That side of stuff is still pretty normal, and it lingers in the back of all this. So what I actually think will happen is, like you've quite rightly said, I think it'll be that the bear pit mentality we go against United, and I think every single game when we win, even when we lose, people will be saying, look, if you look at that table, how many points we've had if we never got those 10 points. And I do think that'll get people in the right mentality and attitude when they're going to these games, because you think this of Everton when it goes back to, not being in Europe. You go back to various times in recent years where we think, oh, it's typical Everton if they've been ruled against here. So it's in many ways, Matt, it's not exactly a new thing for us to try and fight against. It basically feels like you're fighting against the world, doesn't it? And it's all coming back to you. And that's when Everton sadly seems to be when we're at our best. So I go as far as saying fans of other clubs who obviously listen to us, I would argue tooth and nail to the point that we're probably the best club in that 20 who could deal with something like this.
Yeah, we're certainly robust, aren't we? I think
we're just used to it. The sad thing is we're used to it, but that's why we're good at it. That's why it fucks with your head quite a bit, really.
Yeah. I mean, are you looking forward to that Man United game now? Just before we start?
Yeah, I think you're playing a side that they've got all sorts going on themselves, obviously in a much higher capacity than we do. When they're banging on about their manager.
Very strange, aren't they? Like, because they're obviously top of the Premier League forward table, but I think every time I've watched them in the last 2 months, I've thought, my God, these are absolutely horrendous.
Well, unless you looked at it, I don't think you get their fans being really happy that they're on the best run of form in the Premier League. You look what's going on in the Champions League, they look like they're going to probably have to go down into the Europa League, or even worse, really, the Europa Conference, given what's going on there. I think there's a lot of players as well there's a lot of stuff going around about Rashford and all sorts of various things seem to be going on with their players and stuff. They've got obviously nowhere near the level we have, but they've got issues going on at Man United. And I think, you hear Ten Hag, and I'm not sure if I'm a fan of him or not, basically based on what he says. The things he come out and says after the game, like, oh, we can still win games. The conventional things you expect from a manager. I actually used to value him as a little bit better than that, but it shows you what happens when a club's in trouble. You compare that to what you'll hear from Sean Dyche, both pre-game and post-match, obviously based on the result. I'd actually look at that quite significantly if you watch a match of the day or whatever the night, because you'll see him. He looks like he's got an automatic message to come out and say towards their fans, to everybody in the media and whatnot. I think with Sean Dyche, he's much more considered post-match as he is to when you go to the presser of a morning. There's very, like it used to be with Moyes, you'll get the usual straight back at you. That's not a bad thing when we're in this sort of situation as well, because I'm sure when the presser comes about, he's going to be throwing all sorts at him here. I think he's the ideal man to take that on. But with Man United, it's quite a bizarre season and a bizarre sort of frame of mind that they all seem to be in, particularly with the fans. And obviously we'll find out later this week with a fan who we get on. But yeah, mate, I really fancy this. And I know we've had a bad run with them at home and obviously away in recent seasons. But, Everton need to kick them. Not in literal terms, but they need to get out there.
I think in literal terms as well.
Oh, yeah, I think if you get out there and 2 minutes in, someone's, I don't know, just a gay or whoever's in the Onana, whoever's in midfield, not 2-foot someone, but, go through someone, win the ball, and it's a foul, and everybody in the crowd fuming, and that'll set the tone for the rest of the game.
Yeah, and that's sort of what I was going to finish off by asking you about. Like, I think you're right in regards to the press conference and Dyche. Like, it feels like sitting here now, we could probably write pretty close verbatim what he's going to say in
Yeah,
response
yeah.
to questions about this. But I think what I would like to see this week is that, certainly from the manager, and I'm sure there'll be players who've got media commitments. It's on Sky, isn't it, on Sunday? So they'll have a player up for interview. The Sundays will get to speak to a player as well, I'm sure.
If the club hasn't closed the door, though, Matt, because Everton have traditionally done that sort of thing.
I don't think they should do that. Like, I don't think that sends out. I don't think that sends out the right message. But like, what I want to see is, obviously, I want everyone to answer the questions sensibly. You're not going to get James Tarkowski doing an interview with Sky saying the Premier League's corrupt and all this. So yeah, but I think it would be nice if we got like the usual answers, the straight batteredness you're going to get from Dyche about the noise and control of the controllables and all that sort of stuff. But I think from everyone, like, just a bit of fighting talk in there as well. Like, just lace any words you say or any comments you make with a bit of spite and a bit of needle and maybe a little bit of a dig the way of the Premier League and how it's, a bit unfair, and try and continue that indignant mentality. Because I think fans are going to want to see and hear that this week, aren't they? They're going to want to know that, we're all really pissed off about this. We're all furious. We're going to use that furious anger and energy to get behind you as much as possible on Sunday. Are you on the same page as well? And as much as, they might be able to show it, like, come out and let us know in the early, in the build to this game. If you're Sean Dyche, say all the usual things, but then, have a little dig at the Premier League, have a little dig at the decision. If you're James Tarkowski, do the same. If you're Seamus Coleman in your programme notes,
yeah,
I mean, I don't know if anyone even reads them anymore, but do the same. I want that old fella who goes to the ground 90 minutes early. And again, I'm not talking about you here, Dave. And gets his programme and sits there with his Bovril, taking it all in. I want him to.
Who do you think I am these days, mate?
Well, I want everybody. So the guy, like I said, the guy who gets in, sits down 90 minutes before when the gates open, watches the goalies warm up, gets in that early, who gets his programme, who's not really feeling much about it. I want him to read Seamus Coleman's programme notes and go, yeah, up for this today. Goodison's got to be like that on Sunday, and I feel like coming out and giving the sensible answers is fine, and I'm sure that there'll be a bit of the club, a part of the club that thinks, yeah, let's do that. But come on, if you're gonna try and whip something up a little bit this week, is surely the time to do it.
Yeah, I hope the club don't revert to type, as in, we've all seen the sort of said that term quite a bit. I mean, like those sort of straight bat statements of things like this when we're all fuming about various things, and most of the time it's been what the club has acted like, what the club's done, transfer windows and whatnot. I think I just where I sort of disagree with this is I can't see it happening in such an extreme way as you've mentioned it, and it's not even an extreme way that you've mentioned, if you get what I mean. I'm talking about, the program to the chat they'll do on Sky. You look at the PR department at the football club. I imagine have been going 24/7 since this happened, making sure that the right message, in their opinion, goes out there. I imagine they'll consider that as, let's all calm down a little bit here. I don't think we're going to see a player come out, like you say, and go nuts.
It doesn't take much. Sorry to interrupt. It doesn't take much, does it? Because like, all it has to be is a line in an interview.
Yeah.
Like, and then you'll see it on social media. This isn't aimed at the fella or the woman who get in 90 minutes early and read the program. But if James Tarkowski has a little dig in an interview which is 20 minutes long, then the one line in which he has a dig in will be picked up by Toffee Blues, Everton Hub, Everton Daily, and it'll be shared. And that's the bit that'll go viral, and that's the bit that will feed into all this. If you get what I mean.
Yeah, and just to back that up, I think pre going into the game, and again, like we've said at the start, just visualizing what's going on at the club and all the lads return. There's various players we've got, like you mentioned, Seamus, the Tarkowski, I think, is at the top of that list as well. And obviously the inside team with Dyche, Woan and Stone, who I think are the right people. You've got to set set the team up, to set the squad up, to set the mentality up when United arrive at Goodison. Fan wise, I don't think it's much of an issue. I think, right, like you said rightly, it's and there's a load that's hit by me really, and I don't mean to offend anybody like this, but there's elderly people who I sit by in the main stand, and obviously when we score goals, they're going crazy like everybody else. But when it comes to actual support, I'm talking about come on, and the sort of screaming and shouting like we've all done, particularly where you sit. You're right in the middle of it all, Matt, at the Gladys. I hope, I say hope, you've got a lot of older Blues sitting there. I don't imagine them to come in with walking sticks and start throwing them towards the ground or anything like that.
Oh, that's what I want on Sunday. Yeah.
You're going to take your own. You want it to be like that mob meme, don't you, off The Simpsons?
Yeah,
it's going to be like that, walking into Goodison. But yeah, these it's going to be unique if nothing else. And people will say and look back on various times we've had to do that, like when we all ran onto the pitch, or when most people ran onto the pitch against Palace on that particular night.
Well, none of that. That's daft, isn't it?
Oh no, absolutely. I'm not saying. I'm talking about more the mentality of it. That was done in a celebration. This is the complete opposite, obviously. It's the sound that Goodison can make it have itself. It's the sound that we need to make go for ourselves in this sort of thing. And like you rightly said, you're going to get... And look, you're going to have people walking up, you're going to have the protests, you're going to have all the flags out there, and you see a lot of fans do it every time, fight for us and all that sort of thing. I think that's what... I'm not going to say I'm looking forward to it, but I am very I think all of us are feeling really, really pissed off with all this, and you've got to go out there and show what Everton can be, what Everton used to be, and what Everton can be, what Everton are, when we all put our minds to this sort of... I mean, it used to infuriate you, didn't it, when you go to games where, towards the end of the season, you need to win this to get in the top 7 and get a qualification for Europe, and you wouldn't see anger. I don't think Everton are particularly good at celebrating, if that's probably a criticism of many who I'll get pelters for. But I don't think, because we haven't had it enough, we haven't had it to the point where we're like, oh, I could get into Europe this year, lads. How long ago was that, So it's got to be a different Everton, a really different Everton. Not one that's feeling sorry for itself, but one that thinks it gets out of this and doesn't even consider the 10 points cut off. Forget all that, lads. How many times have we wanted to go and beat Man United and we haven't gone even further into it? Like, the person that comes to mind immediately, you've said it, and it's Seamus Coleman. He's nearly back fit as well, isn't he? So he'll be in and around the place anyway as the club captain. He's the guy that you need as much as the manager in many ways, because the team's set. We know what the team's going to be largely. You know how we're going to try and play, which has been really good lately. That side of it can go to... You can step that aside. You need the individuals in there to kick all our players up the arse, basically, when you're going into this game.
I want Coleman out on the pitch beforehand with a megaphone. do you know like that fella in the MLS video? The viral one. Is it? Yeah. That's what I want. If he's not in the squad at the weekend, that's what I want him doing. Get him out on the pitch like some kind of Everton Bears, hyping up the crowd.
Get him one of them new flags, just running around on the outside of the pitch.
Absolutely,
but I mean, we're lucky to have him. Even now, I know as a player, he's going towards the end of his professional career, but that's exactly what you want, is somebody like him. And like you mentioned there, team-wise, Tarkowski, he's a leader, a natural leader as well. You'll get someone like him as the club captain who needs to be screaming at these lads all the way through it. And look, I know we've said the thing in another term, we've repeated many, but Everton go and give it 100% and we can't really moan about it.
No.
You have to bring that sort of thing out here, because unless you see somebody not giving 100%, unless you see somebody, we're looking at Dyche, if he hasn't made a certain sub, which is obviously it's that's been documented a lot, hasn't it, by all of us.
How trivial are those Ashley Young substitution chats feel?
Oh yeah, exactly, mate. You think he's not even looked at the bench till 70 odd minutes. It infuriates you. I don't want to see anybody looking at that thinking, fuck's sake, that's why we're not winning this game. The excuse we've not won that game is a bad decision from referee. If we're sitting there post-match absolutely seething that something's gone United's way, if that's the only thing we have to say, we can't really complain, can we? And that's the perspective we need to keep all of our heads like when you're going into something like this.
Yeah, absolutely. God, can't wait to talk about this game more. The world build up to
can't wait till you get the preview with the United fan or the United.
We'll get Jay Mottershead on. I'll be screaming.
Oh, mate, you'll love this. You will absolutely love this because you'll be giving all sorts of shit about how United have been.
Yeah, start the podcast singing "Manchester's full of shit." That's what I'm going to be like all week. Yeah, my father-in-law's a United fan. I'm not going to speak to him. Unlucky.
Well, do you know, people have said, like, I remember people used to say several years ago, Everton have got to be the most boring club. They don't win anything. They don't go down. They generally stay in midfield. Tell you what, you go back, the last 4 or 5 years, Everton have got to have been better than Brookside. You know what I mean? It's just been it's been insane, and this has probably hit its peak. What our podcast is basically made for, really, isn't it? It's just stuff like this.
Well, it'd be nice if we were talking about us winning stuff, wouldn't it?
How many times have you said that in our life together, mate, in the last 10 years? It'd be nice if we did something right, wouldn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Right, we'll wrap up now. Last 5 minutes, Dave. Favourite football stories from the weekend? I don't know how much attention you paid to the international break or not, but I've got one on Saturday night. France were playing Gibraltar.
Is this 7? What score was it in the
end?
Well,
no. So Gibraltar, I'm sure you imagine teams up for them would have been, let's keep it tight. Let's try and frustrate them. It's going to be hard, obviously, but let's keep things respectable. They scored 2 own goals in the first 4 minutes, and then had the player sent off on 18 minutes and lost 14-0. So not a good night.
That could be better than expected, though, to be honest, mate, if you want to turn it into a positive.
You know what? I think they were 7-0 down after 37 minutes. So, yeah, it could have been worse. But, I mean, it's not a great start. That is 2 own goals in 4 minutes and a red card before 20. Dear me.
Have they ever won an international game?
I've got no idea.
Who plays for them?
Danny Higginbottom played for them, didn't he?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, there's the most bizarre... because he obviously doesn't sound like he's your... I'm not even sure how people from Gibraltar sound like. He clearly does, but it was so random finding out that he played for Gibraltar. I don't know why he did that. The only other thing that I looked at that was interesting, really, is how good Scotland is starting to look. They've automatically gone through to the Euros next year, had a bit of a canter, and they beat Spain as well. What did they have? 3-3 draw against Norway too.
Yeah. Norway without Haaland, though, wasn't it?
It was yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's you probably had another 3 on if he was playing, but yeah, I think obviously the automatic person you think of with us is Patterson. To think he's going to a international finals, then that's really good. The experience he's
is he? If he's not playing, that's the other thing, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I suppose that's one side of it. If he's, you like to think Steve Clarke knows what he's like and what he can be. But yeah, I mean, it's I'm not Scottish by in any means, but probably like them more than England, to be honest with you, because I can't really stand England internationals. So, yeah, I was impressed at what Scotland have done with Steve Clarke as well, who seems like, if Steve Clarke was an Evertonian, I can only imagine he'd be sleeping in his car or, just I don't know, sleeping on a bench in a park because he looks like that much of a miserable piss. And the best thing I've ever heard about him, and I can't believe we're ending this with Steve Clarke, was every time you see him, his face looks like he's just been thrown out by his wife. But I think it's absolutely spot on. Yeah. So yeah, let's end this on Scotland.
Oh yeah, there we go. I always used to say, I just feel so sorry for Scottish Evertonians, but they're getting a bit more joy, aren't they, in recent years? But listen, who knows? Surely things are going to start turning for us as well.
Yeah.
But that has been Blue Monday. Cheers for watching. If you're on YouTube, hit like, hit subscribe, leave a comment. Dave has promised to get his camera on next week, so it won't just be me sat here staring into the void.
I might just start getting photos of myself, mate,
like a little montage of Dave's best photos.
Yeah, a little.
The show goes on. That'd be lovely. That'd be really nice.
Professionally, yeah.
Just get like just get a picture of Andrej Kanchelskis on there
with me standing next to him. Oh, we got a photo with him, didn't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just before you finish, I remember just go back on what we did one time when we got to speak to him, we got to interview him, and we got a photo. I remember you sort of fumed at me because me and you got a photo with him in the middle.
It's not very professional, that is it?
No, it wasn't like the same when people kicking off what we were wearing with Joe Royal. That was quite bizarre at the time. We'll have to do this some point, won't we, where we just go through like anecdotes and all that sort of thing
Weird
that we've
moments.
experienced. But with this particular one, I remember you not being happy because I cut you off the photo and it just looked like me sitting next to Cancios because you're like, what about me, Dave? Where have I gone,
Absolute,
Dave?
absolutely ruthless cropping. Yeah. But
Yeah.
what can you do? But yeah, if you're watching us on YouTube, leave a comment, like, subscribe. We're going to be putting loads more stuff on here. And if you're listening to us on your podcast app, do give us a rating, give us a review. All these things help. And if you do it more, I'll say these things less, which I'm sure people will be glad to know as well. So cheers to Dave. That has been Blue Monday. We'll have loads coming up this week. Subs weekly tomorrow, weekly Wednesday. Big scrap with Jay on Thursday for the weekend preview, and
Yeah.
then an
If anyone
eventful
needs a mailbag, by the way, mate, it's this week, isn't it?
yeah, mailbag over the weekend was great as well. That's been doing amazing on YouTube. If you want to give that a watch as well. So yeah, we're everywhere. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate your support over the weekend. Cheers to everybody for reaching out and saying how much they enjoyed the content or enjoyed hearing us on BBC or whatever as well. That has been Blue Monday. Up the toffees. We'll speak to you again very soon.